Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl, and today I'm talking about my author for 2026. As many of you know, if you've been around since I have been on YouTube, every year I have an author that I try to read all of their books, or their books that I haven't read yet, or most of their books. I've done something like that every year. I've been doing this for years before I even started YouTube. So for 2026, I chose one of my favorite authors, Michael Crichton. And this ties in perfectly with my Jurassic Reading Challenge. Michael Crichton was born on October 23rd, 1942. It was so interesting. When I first started reading him in the 1990s, I had no idea that he was older than both of my parents. I had such a crush on him, and that's so icky knowing how much older that he was than me. I started with Jurassic Park, and then I just read everything I could get my hands on. I still have not read every book he's ever written, but I have read a lot of them, and I own a lot of them. After I started reading him, he was an auto-buy author, and every year when he had a new book that came out, I would buy it. His books have sold over 200 million copies worldwide, but I've noticed that a lot of people don't really know that much about him. He also worked in a lot of film and TV shows. In fact, Twister, ER, those are things he wrote as well. And Westworld. I have not seen the new one, but I know that that TV show is based on the one that he made a long time ago. He even wrote a how-to guide to computer programming that was, I think, one of the first ones. He had his hands in so many things. He went to Harvard, majoring in English, but he changed that part way to biological anthropology. He graduated with honors, and then he went back to Harvard Medical School. He started writing while he was a medical student, and he wrote under two different pseudonyms, John Lang and Jeffrey Hudson. He wrote thriller novels and medical novels to help pay his tuition. The first book that he published under his own name was in 1969, and that was The Andromeda Strain. He died from cancer on November 4th, 2008, and since his death, his wife has worked with others to publish a lot of his manuscripts that were either already done but not edited and published, were partly done, or were very little done. And so there are still Michael Crichton books coming out. For this challenge this next year, I picked 15 books that I wanted to read for sure. I might only get to 12 and be doing one a month, but I wanted to pick 15. I'll just read them in order of how I feel like reading them. And then if I get to the end of the year and I haven't read all of them, then that's fine. I want to read at least 12, but I picked 15, and then I have a couple also that I also might add on if I get through them fast. So two of them that I have never read before that I found at bookstores over the past few months. Easy Go. This has such a funny cover, just such an old vintage looking cover, and this has his name on it now, but this was written as John Lang. So this is one of those first ones under his pseudonym. This says, beneath the sands of the Egyptian desert lies treasure beyond imagining, and when a professor of archaeology finds clues to the location of a pharaoh's lost tomb in ancient hieroglyphs, he hatches a plan to find the burial site and plunder it. But can a 5-man team of smugglers and thieves uncover what the centuries have hidden? And even if they find it, can they escape it with their lives? And then the other book is this one, Micro. This says Michael Crichton and Richard Preston, and it's in a locked office of a Honolulu building. 3 men are found dead with no sign of struggle, except for these cuts all over their whole bodies. So I'm excited to read 2 that I've never read before. Then as far as the rereads, most of these I have not read for a long time. So they're probably going to feel really fresh and new to me. And there's a few that I've left off the list that I've read more recently. At least one that I did not like. I did not like Eaters of the Dead. There's a movie called The 13th Warrior that is based on Eaters of the Dead, because I forgot to mention that most of his books have been made into movies as well. And a lot of them, he was really involved in the making of the movies as well. Sometimes he directed too. The ones I've chosen are Airframe. This one has been a very long time since I've read it, and this is 3 passengers are dead, 56 are injured, the interior cabin virtually destroyed, but the pilot manages to land the plane. At a moment when the issue of safety and death in the skies is paramount in the public mind, a lethal mid-air disaster aboard a commercial twin-jet airliner bound for Hong Kong to Denver triggers a pressured and frantic investigation. I don't remember very much about this at all. And I am somebody who is terrified of flying, and I hate it. I almost crashed once. I didn't like it before then, and then that just cemented it. So this will probably be very intense for me, even having read it. The next one will probably be one of the ones that I put off more toward the end, because it hasn't been as long since I've read this as it has some of the others, but it's The Great Train Robbery. This is a great book of just like it says. It's a heist on a train. This would be perfect for October. But I did watch the movie with Doug as well, and so that hasn't been as long either. It still has been a while though, so it's still on my list. My favorite Michael Crichton, besides Jurassic Park and the Lost World, for a very long time has been Timeline. This is a book about time travel where it uses quantum physics, and it's like they're going through a fax machine, basically, is kind of how it's described. And they go back into the medieval times. So this one I loved, but it has been a long time since I've read it. I wanted to reread it last year and just never got to it. So it is something I've really wanted to get to for quite a while. And I want to see if it's still one of my favorites. One of them that was published after his death is Dragon Teeth. And this one is about the Bone Wars. And I have talked about this book on here before. I read a couple of years ago. But this is one that I really do want to read this year, even though it hasn't been that long, because I've only read it once. I really liked it. I think the first one that came out after he died was Pirate Latitudes. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I feel like it was. So this, obviously, it's about pirates. I've only read this one once as well, and I really liked it, but I don't remember very much. So I really wanted to revisit this one. State of Fear is another one that I wanted to reread a couple of years ago, and I started it, but then I got busy with some other things and didn't go back to it. And I really enjoyed this one when it first came out. It's about global warming and environmental things. A lot of people didn't like this. And at the time, I remember there being a lot of controversy about this book because he goes against the grain. He goes against what most of the scientists are saying and says that there isn't global warming in the way that they're saying it is. And at the back of the book, he actually has all of the research, all of the scientific articles that show the things that he is saying and back them up. Because contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of things in science that not every single scientist does agree on. And a lot of times you hear it as if it is. But it is I thought that was a really interesting book, and it was very fast paced. I remember that. So this one I definitely want to read again. Next. I hardly remember anything about this one except that I didn't like it very much. But I kept it. So I liked it enough to keep it, but I don't remember. I know that I read it out loud to Doug when we were on a road trip back to, I think we had come to Utah to visit, and we're driving back to Wisconsin. So that might have had something to do with it. If he didn't like it, or if reading it out loud and not being able to read it as quickly as I normally would, I don't know if that was what it was. But this one is about genetics. Talking chimpanzee reported in Java. A group of tourists in Indonesia swear they were abused by a talking ape. Scientists isolate the master gene, a genetic basis for controlling other people. New transgenic pets on the horizon. Giant cockroaches, permanent puppies, industry hard at work. Welcome to our genetic world, fast, furious, and out of control. This is not the world of the future, it's the world of right now. And I actually think this will be more interesting now because I feel like there's so many things that Michael Crichton talked about with science. I mean, he has Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park say that scientists don't stop to think if they should do something, just if they can do it. And obviously I did not quote that exactly. I feel like he does that in a lot of his books. He looks at the things that people don't often stop to decide whether it's good or not. And so I think this will be more interesting the second time around, but I don't know. Maybe I still won't like it as much. And then I also want to reread Prey. It's been a long time since I've read this. This one is about little nanoparticles that they've developed where they can go into the body, and they're just little teeny things that you can't even see with the naked eye, or at least hardly can see with the naked eye. And they can use them for surgery, and a bunch of them have escaped from the laboratory. It says the cloud is self-sustaining and self-reproducing, intelligent, and learns from experience. For all practical purposes, it's alive. It has been programmed as a predator, and it is evolving swiftly. I remember being very into this book when I read it. It was very intense, and so it's been a really long time since I read it. I would love to read Jurassic Park again, but I just read it last year. So I might decide to reread it just for fun, just because it is one of my favorite books. But I have been meaning to reread The Lost World since I read Jurassic Park, but I didn't, or I haven't yet. So I know for sure I'm going to be doing a reread of The Lost World. This book is one of those books that makes me so mad at the movie, because I like every Jurassic Park movie. I even like the newer ones, mainly because they don't have anything to do with the books. So I'm not going in with these preconceived ideas of what should be on the screen. The newest one I thought had some problems, but they had one of the best scenes, in my opinion, from Jurassic Park that was left out of the movie. So that made me excited that was brought back in. But this has something that is so cool that I thought was going to be in the new movie, but wasn't. That had to do with raptors. But then, because there was a gas station in the new movie, and if you've read the book, you'll know what I mean. I was like, hey, there's a gas station. Oh, this thing is about to happen, because of the fact that they had brought a scene forward from the other one. But it wasn't. And I was so disappointed, because this movie, I think that if I had never read the book, if the book hadn't existed, I still don't know if I would have loved it. But I wouldn't have been so mad about it because it changed so many things, and it took out in my opinion, it took out all of the coolest things from this book. So I am very excited to reread this again. I mean, I have read it quite a few times, but it's been a while. And then two more that I haven't read for probably 20 years. Congo, and this is about a gorilla in the Congo. Deep in the heart of the darkest region of the Congo, near the legendary ruins of the lost city of Zinj, an 8-person field expedition dies mysteriously and brutally in a matter of minutes. And then Disclosure. This is about a man who is accused of something at work that, if I'm remembering correctly, he didn't do. I might be wrong. And so it is a high-speed thriller about that. And then I'm going to for sure be reading Travels. This is a nonfiction that he wrote about his life and a lot of the adventures he had. And I have only read this book twice, but I loved it both times. One of my bucket list items used to be to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I have taken it off now for multiple reasons, but this was the reason I wanted to, because he did it in this book, and I just thought it sounded so cool. And then there are a couple that I don't own somehow. I don't know why I don't. I don't have copies of The Andromeda Strain or Sphere. And in Andromeda Strain, I believe it is a virus that gets out and starts killing people. And in Sphere, it is they're going underwater, and there's something underwater. And then the maybes, the ones that I might read if I end up being able to read all of these and I want more, I possibly might read either A Case of Need or 5 Patients, or both. Those are two of the books that he wrote in medical school. And then I also might get the Electronic Life Intro to Basic Computer Programming. I don't really love computers, but I think it would be interesting to see how it was written. And my daughter, who loves computers, might find that interesting. I would love to hear if you have read any books by Michael Crichton, and if you have, which ones are your favorite? If you haven't read any, or if you have, also if you've loved any of the movies. I'm really excited in 2026 to be reading so many books by one of my favorite authors and seeing if I still like them as much as I did the first time I read them, and also being able to tie it into my Jurassic reading challenge.